Hello, and welcome to this presentation of the paper Beyond Hiding and Revealing, Exploring Effects of Visibility and Form of Interaction on the Witness Experience. My name is Alarith Uhde, and this project is based on a collaborative effort together with Tim Hoff and Marc Hassenzahl. The main question we try to address in this project is how our interactions with technology affect the people around us. So here we don't focus primarily on the user of a technology and their experience of it, but on other people that we call witnesses. I will start with a few words on the background of our study and some previous work. So, first of all, one reason why we think it is important to look at experiential effects of technologies not only on the user, but also on other people, is that many interactions today happen in social situations. This is critical because the social part of a situation changes how we experience such interactions. This affects the users themselves, but obviously also other people who couldn't witness the interaction and experience it if they weren't there. So this social situationness of interactions makes effects on witnesses an important focus. Consequently, we can ask how we should design for such experiences of witnesses. And there is a widely used approach already in the literature, which was introduced by Reeves and colleagues in 2005. They focused mostly on the visibility of certain aspects of an interaction from the perspective of a witness, and argued that designers can create certain patterns of visible and hidden components of an interaction to create certain experiences for these witnesses. More specifically, they distinguished between manipulations of a technology and their effects. So, for example, pushing a button or providing input in some other way would be a manipulation. If that makes the device flash a light or play a sound, that would be an effect of that interaction. Now, if you consider the visibility of manipulations and effects as binary categories, this gives you four possible combinations that you can see here. For example, this model assumes that an invisible manipulation combined with a visible effect leads to a magical experience for the witness. Although this taxonomy has proven to be useful to design and study the social impact of technologies, there are also a few problems with its adoption in the literature. First of all, the taxonomy was initially created based on stage technologies used for public performances, but later studies adopted it for a much broader set of socially situated interactions with technology, such as gesture input for everyday smartphone interactions and so on. We could ask whether this transfer is warranted, given that smartphones, for example, are used in potentially quite different situations than stage technologies. A second problem relates to the underlying concepts used in the taxonomy itself. It heavily relies on the strategies of hiding and revealing parts of an interaction, but doesn't really define what hiding and revealing actually mean. This is problematic, and I will try to briefly clarify why. So let's say we define hidden parts of an interaction as something that a potential witness cannot see or hear, and revealed parts as those things they can see. This is maybe the most straightforward definition. The problem is that this definition is incompatible with the secretive category from the taxonomy. Secretive interactions have hidden manipulations and effects, so a witness would actually not witness them. And accordingly, it is implausible that such interactions lead to a secretive experience, or in fact any experience at all. From the witness perspective, they didn't happen. So an alternative definition would be based on conventions. Let's say you see someone playing the guitar, which normally means they play some chords with the left hand and strum the guitar with their right hand. So the manipulations are clearly visible, but maybe also unremarkable. With a convention-based definition, we could say they are hidden, maybe in plain sight, because they do not draw attention. People are used to seeing someone play the guitar like that. Now, if you change the form of interaction, for example by replacing the strumming part of the right hand with something like foot tapping, for example, this change draws extra attention to the interaction, although it may have become less visible on the perceptual level. We could say that this makes the manipulation more revealed because it deviates from the norm. But this doesn't work with how magical interactions are defined, for example. We elaborate on this problem as well as a third possible definition in the paper, but the bottom line is that the terms hiding and revealing don't seem to be defined consistently. Finally, a third problem is that the relationship between the patterns of visibility and their experiential consequences have not been empirically confirmed in the past 18 years since the publication. In fact, a number of different experiences have been found, for example, for suspenseful interactions with revealed manipulations and hidden effects, but whether these are actually experienced as suspenseful was never tested. So we ran a study to test this, specifically for suspenseful interactions which had such a wide experiential variety in previous studies. We ran an online study with 407 participants and compared 4 different suspenseful interactions. We used a self-developed scale for the 4 experience types as measures. There were some problems with the magical scale as we describe in the paper, so we excluded it from the analysis. All 4 gestures were different ways to use an interactive hearing aid. The hearing aid can set a focus, for example on the conversation partner, but it can also be distracted, and through these hand gestures the user resets the focus on the partner. I will just briefly summarize our core finding here, which is that although all 4 gestures were designed as suspenseful, they were not experienced as suspenseful. Instead, they led to a stronger secretive experience, and with one exception, also to a stronger expressive experience. As a positive future outlook, we also measured how participants experienced the interaction using the interaction vocabulary, which is an alternative questionnaire. This led to a more detailed description of similarities and differences between the gestures, which can be useful for future designers. In sum, we conclude that hiding and revealing, as they are currently used, are somewhat problematic concepts. Also, although we used a suspenseful design pattern, our interactions did not lead to suspenseful experiences. However, we identified a promising path forward by focusing on the aesthetics of interaction and studying the form in more detail. Finally, we recommend that designers really focus on characteristics of the social situation in which people use their devices and what people typically do there, and consider this during their design. More details on such an approach can be found in one of our previous papers that I reference here. Thank you.